Is it better to be feared or respected? I say, is it too much to ask for both? Sometimes you gotta run before you can walk. Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. I am the Armorer. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Geek Pantheon. I am Eric, and today we are going to talk about the Artificer subclass from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, the Armorer, aka Iron Man in D&D. I don't know a better way to describe this, and I think it's pretty apparent from the design decisions that were made creating this subclass that the people that created this subclass probably wouldn't argue with me too hard. So we are going to break down an overview of the Armorer and then go into the level by level class features and finally how to play the Armorer and how to run a game for the Armorer as a dungeon master. So let's get into it. Now, I will say that as we go into an overview about the Armorer, that you do get two subclasses with this particular choice. You get the Guardian armor and the Infiltrator armor that you pick at 3rd level. That basically gives you two different paths through this subclass as you level up. And it does have some pretty significant differences in terms of the abilities, especially when you make the initial choice. There aren't any distinctions in the spell list that you get for picking this subclass, because artificers do get additional spells based on their subclass. But there are some big moments where it does split off, and if you're the Guardian, you get one thing, and if you are the Infiltrator, you get another. Both of them seem super cool, and both of them seem really evocative of this artificer that tinkers with their armor and they kind of wear their spellcasting focus and can do some really cool things. It's just a question of what design choices did you make at the outset. Do you want the Guardian that is very much kind of the front line, plant your feet and hold the line kind of armor, or the Infiltrator that is much more dexterous, stealthy, much more mobile, that kind of thing? So those are the two options that you get from the outset. But as you go through the subclass, it does get more and more powerful and more flavorful. I think this is a super cool subclass. I really like it a lot. And I think the armor they include, or the imagery that they included in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything for the armor of the two variants fighting side by side is really cool, and shows that if you have two players that want to play this in a party, they can exist side by side if they pick the two different paths. They do very distinct things at those big moments in the leveling process, and I think it would be really cool. So let's get into the class features. At 3rd level, starting off, you get Tools of the Trade, which is essentially you get proficiency in smith's tools, being able to build your own armor. Perhaps you were captured and had to cobble something together in a cave somewhere. That'll be the last reference I make, I promise. But yeah, you get to build your armor or tinker with it at the very least, being able to use your smith's tools to refine your armor, build it up, and that's kind of how you can push forward through this subclass leveling process of saying why your armor is getting more powerful. You're tinkering with it. You're an artificer. That's what you do. So yeah, I think it's really cool. Next up is the Armorer spells that you get at 3rd level, which is Magic Missile and Thunderwave. Once again, it's all about how you flavor these spells, because your armor is your spell casting focus, or at least it can be. We'll get into that in the next class feature. And so Magic Missile coming from your armor, some apparatus that you've put on your forearm to where you can point it and Magic Missile shoots out. Thunderwave coming from your chest that you can just kind of extend your chest out and a blast shoots out from you, knocking everything back. These are both really evocative of what they're going for from this armor that has all these tools and gadgets built into it that can allow you to do these really incredible things. I think is very cool, and both of these spells work really well for that. And then the final 3rd level ability you get is Arcane Armor. So this is the big one in terms of making the armor a holistic thing that you can use. As an action, you turn a suit of armor that you're wearing into your arcane armor. So the big things that happen when you do that is, if that armor normally has a strength requirement to wear it, it does not apply to you. That armor is now the spellcasting focus for your artifice spells. The armor attaches to you and cannot be removed against your will, which is huge. and it replaces any missing limbs that your character might have. It functionally replaces them, and you can take the helmet on and off as a bonus action. And then additionally, you can take the full suit of armor on and off as an action. So those are the big things that you get when you turn a suit of armor into your arcane armor. That suit continues to be your arcane armor until you use this feature again and create a separate set of arcane armor. So you can't have a bunch of arcane armors just floating around. And then once you've established your arcane armor, you do have one more thing to do at third level, and that is determine your armor model. And this is what I'm talking about with the Guardian and the Infiltrator paths through this subclass. You make this decision at third level when you create the arcane armor. And one important distinction to make is you can change the armor model of your arcane armor by taking a short or long rest. So when you make this decision, it is not locked in. You can flip back and forth. You can the same suit of armor can be tweaked to have a different function, which is really cool and gives this subclass a lot of utility out in the field. Okay, so the two things that you get with the Guardian armor model is firstly Thunder Gauntlets. So they count as simple melee weapons when you are not holding anything, your fists. And when you land an attack, you deal 1d8 thunder damage, and any target that you hit has disadvantage to attack any creature that is not you because of the emitting pulse of the thunder gauntlet. So this is kind of evocative of fourth edition a little bit. This is like marking your target as a frontline fighter of forcing creatures to focus their attacks on you and imposing a penalty if they elect not to. It's not as beefy as marking was in fourth edition, but I do think this is really cool. I like the idea of just punching and having these blasts coming out of your gauntlets is really cool. Dealing thunder damage when you punch things is super cool. But you would need to have an artificer with a decent strength score, because these aren't like finesse. There's no condition that allows you to attack with a different ability other than strength. So it would be normal punches. I still think, regardless of that, if you're building towards this subclass, I think that's really cool, and I like it. Defensive field is the other thing that you get as a Guardian at third level. This allows you to grant yourself temporary hit points, because you're basically creating a force field around yourself equal to the number of levels that you have in this subclass. So starting off with 3 temporary hit points and replacing obviously any other temporary hit points you might have, as long as it's less than 3 starting out. And then additionally, you can use this. This is a bonus action, by the way. You can do this thing, and then you can do it a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and all those charges come back after a long rest. So starting off, it would be 2 uses per long rest, and then go up from there, which is very thematically, it makes sense. You're this frontline fighter. You would have this ability to put up an additional shield around yourself, which is really cool. And I think thematically just fits perfectly for a Guardian model type. Okay, and then you have the Infiltrator option. So the first thing that you get as the Infiltrator is the Lightning Launcher. So a gem-like node appears on your chest or on your gauntlet or arm, your choice. And what this does is it's a simple ranged weapon that has a range of 90 feet and a long range of 300 feet. And basically it deals 1d6 lightning damage when you hit with it. And then on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with it, you can deal an additional 1d6 lightning damage per turn. So you can only do it once you start getting into the multiple attack stuff that comes with the later levels of this subclass. You still only get to do that one time. But yeah, this is the ranged version of it. It's really cool. The idea of having this gem-like node that shoots lightning, a blast of lightning out at your enemies or from your chest is very cool, and I like it a lot. And I think the range of 90, 300 is good. I think it makes a lot of sense. 90 feet is a pretty long short range for a ranged weapon. Rarely in my games anyway do I see the need to extend beyond 90 feet really. And then 300 feet is very long. So no, I think this is really cool. I like it. The damage, I get the balancing, because with the Thunder Gauntlet you have 1d8, but you're in more danger because you're in melee, that kind of thing. The 1d6 damage on the Lightning Launcher uh, does, you know, it's less, but you can deal more one time each turn, which starting out is going to be every time. So yeah, it's kind of a balancing act. The next thing you get is the infiltrator is the powered steps, which increases your walking speed by 5 feet. So nothing crazy, just making you more mobile around the battlefield, which is fine. Like I said, nothing out of this world, nothing astronomical, but it makes sense. And then the last one is dampening field, which gives you advantage on dexterity stealth checks while wearing your armor. However, if the armor would normally impose disadvantage on stealth checks, then they cancel each other out. So you're at least getting out from underneath that disadvantage hole that your armor would set you in. So yeah, I think both of these make a lot of sense. I think the powered walk is fine. I would be a lot more excited to see maybe a hover ability or something like that. I think would be really cool, or a very short flight speed. But you know, making your walking speed 5 feet faster is fine, especially at third level. You don't want to go too crazy with your third level abilities. And then the dampening field, I I think it's a necessary ability to have. I think if you are going to build a subclass that is kind of dependent on wearing this armor all the time, and they're going to throw on this like heavy armor that imposes disadvantage on stealth checks, and they're always going to be wearing it, even though it only takes an action to take it on and off. But I think doing something to negate that, and then if somebody is willing to take the dip in AC that they would normally be getting from wearing this massive armor and go with something that doesn't impose disadvantage on stealth, then they get a bonus because they're a little bit sneakier, even though they're easier to hit. So yeah, I think both of these make sense thematically, and I like them. If not, at least saying the powered steps are a little underwhelming. Okay, at 5th level, you gain 2 more additional spells to your Artificer list from the Armorer subclass. The first one is Mirror Image, so you can create 3 duplicates of yourself, and then there's a chance that any attack targeting you will hit one of the duplicates, so on and so forth. And this one, I like the idea of magically inscribing runes into your armor that create mirror images of yourself that you can activate, and all of a sudden pop, there are 3 things that mimic your movements and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, I think this is really fun. I think it's really cool. And I think especially for somebody taking the Guardian model, who's going to be up at the front lines and constantly fighting as an artificer, you're not going to have a ton of hit points. You're going to have more than like a wizard, but you're not going to have a lot. And so having some additional measures like the defensive field that we talked about earlier, in addition to something like mirror image, will go a long way to protecting you. And then secondly is Shatter, which is a much more offensive spell, allowing you to emit a high-pitched ringing sound that eventually causes some objects to break, or dealing 3d8 damage to a creature is not nothing. So yeah, I really like these 2 spells, and I think once again they do a good job of continuing that kind of thematic story being told with this subclass. And then also with 5th level, you get extra attack. So when you take the attack action, you can attack twice, which is really cool and makes a lot of sense when the idea of having this powered armor that you can tweak and modify and make it move faster on your command. Like your body is just kind of in there and the armor is moving on its own. So with the Guardian being able to punch twice, with the Infiltrator being able to launch their lightning launcher twice, but still only doing that additional damage one time, I think is really cool and thematically works really well for a subclass that, granted, is an artificer, but is still designed to be fighting a lot. It's a very offensively focused subclass, fighting first kind of thing. So yeah, I think it works really well, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And then at 9th level, you get Hypnotic Pattern added to your spell list. Additionally, you also get Lightning Bolt. So Hypnotic Pattern, obviously, you emit this like illusory thing that can cause creatures to become charmed by you, and when they're charmed by the spell, they're effectively incapacitated and their movement speed is 0. And so it's a pretty potent thing to be able to just eliminate some threats from the battlefield, and I think is really cool. I do have difficulty, I mean, kind of imagining it. I guess like the idea of projecting from your armor this hypnotic image could work. It just, obviously we all have a certain character in mind thematically when we think about this. And there are some abilities, I guess you could say, that fit well from other mediums. But yeah, this one, it still works from a logic standpoint of programming this kind of spell into your armor. It's just thematically, it doesn't slot in like everything up to this point has. And then the other thing that you get is lightning bolt. Beefed up version of your lightning launcher is a way that you could flavor it if you are running with the infiltrator armor. And then if you're running with the guardian armor, just maybe like you go to punch the air and a lightning bolt erupts from your fist would be a cool way to flavor it. But either way, this one definitely is on track from the theme that we've been talking about of working really well. And then at ninth level, armor modifications. Now this one is huge, I think. So basically, you learn how to apply your artificer infusions to your armor to your arcane armor in a special way. Obviously, at any point, you could put a suit of armor infusion on your armor up to this point, but now you get to count your armor as separate pieces, with the helmet just counting as a helmet, with the chest piece just counting as armor, with the boots counting as boots, with the simple weapons that you got counting as that in the form of the gauntlets. And you get to apply a separate infusion to all of them. And additionally, because at ninth level you only can apply 3 infusions, you can apply 2 additional ones as long as they're part of your arcane armor. So you can do 5 infusions, 6 infusions at this point, and you can apply 5 infusions at once to your armor. And then you can additionally have like a shield with like the repulsor shield ability, or a weapon, or a ring, or all the other infusion options that you have out there. But this is really cool, and this is the point where you can really personalize your armor and really make it something that reflects your character in a big, meaningful way. And so I think that this is like the huge point in the subclass that I really like, where you can start tweaking each individual piece of armor in unique and fascinating ways. And like my mind just reels at all the different possibilities you'll have once you reach ninth level of the things that you can do with this armor. So I think it's really cool how this kind of opens things up at ninth level. And then at 13th level, you gain Fire Shield and Greater Invisibility as additional spells on your Artificer spell list. So Fire Shield obviously makes a lot of sense in terms of that idea of like bringing your arm up and a shield appearing in front of it, giving yourself resistance to fire or cold damage. You do get to pick. And then additionally, if anybody makes a melee attack on you while you're using this spell, they take damage from just the ambient energy of your shield, whether that's hot or cold. So, I mean, this one is just so evocative from a mental standpoint of an enemy rushing up on you or throwing a fireball at you, and you bringing up this magical shield to dissipate some of the damage, and then rising from the smoldering earth around you in an awesome epic moment. And the Greater Invisibility, that idea of just you working your armor in such a way to where like it becomes invisible. It can refract light around it and reflect things and get all technical with it, because you're an artificer. That's how your magic works, is you get technical with things. So yeah, I think thematically this one makes a lot of sense. Next up is the 15th level class feature, Perfected Armor. So this is kind of the capstone. Well, it is the capstone ability for the subclass, but it's also the capstone for your armor, kind of their final evolution, as it were. So for the Guardian, when a huge or smaller creature ends its turn within 30 feet of you, as a reaction, you can force it to make a strength saving throw against your spell save DC to resist being pulled towards you. And you can pull it up to 30 feet towards you. If the creature ends up within 5 feet of you, then you can make a melee attack as a part of the reaction. So just, yeah, pulling somebody towards you, and as they get into range, just punching them with your thunder gauntlets. So yeah, this really well, and I think makes a lot of thematic sense as a way to finish off this subclass. The idea of using some kind of apparatus in your gauntlet to like pull a creature in close, because you're a frontline fighter, as it were. You're kind of a tank in more ways than one, preventing enemies from like disengaging with you, running off to go attack somebody else, you can literally just pull them right back and then get an extra attack in on them. That's where my mind goes when I think of this ability, is if you're fighting against a rogue enemy that does its disengage and tries to take off to go attack a healer of the party, or a wizard, or just one of the backline fighters, you can just be like, nope, and pull them back, as long as they don't dash or something. But if they're using disengage, well, like it's situationally useful is what I'm trying to say. And then for the Infiltrator, any creature that takes lightning damage from your lightning launcher attack begins to glow with the lightning like stays flowing through it. And if it attempts to attack you, then it has disadvantage as the lightning continues to jolt through it. And any creature that hits an attack on the affected creature until the end of your next turn. Additionally, the next attack roll against this creature has advantage, and if the attack hits, it deals 1d6 extra lightning damage as the force of the attack causes the lightning to jolt through them once again. So both of these are a great way to kind of cap off the armors. Like I said, the Infiltrator, just kind of what they were going for with it, being this very mobile, agile style of armor. I think it would have been really cool to see a fly speed implemented in some way. I think that would have been a cool way to cap it off. I do like the additional damage from the lightning launcher, but you know, the Guardian basically can own the front line with their ability of pulling things back towards them and then getting a free attack in if they manage to get them within 5 feet. Whereas the Infiltrator just does a bit more damage, and you know, can affect the creature past its own turn. But I don't know, it's one of those abilities that makes sense from a logical standpoint, but from just the eyeball test, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, that works. And then lastly, at 17th level, we gain our final 2 spells for our Artificer spell list that are prepared. And that is kind of the opposite of each other. We have Pass Wall and then Wall of Force. So obviously, Wall of Force, you can pick a spot and create an invisible wall of force that creatures cannot pass through, kind of that huge shield that you can throw out to protect yourself and your allies, or trap an enemy from escaping. And then Pass Wall basically allows you to create an opening in an existing wall and allow your party to have a means to get through. And so I very much see these two as kind of belonging to the Guardian and the Infiltrator, respectively. Like, the Guardian is going to be the one to throw up this huge wall of force to protect everybody or keep enemies from escaping and that kind of thing. Whereas the Infiltrator is going to be the one using Pass Wall to sneak in somewhere, get in around security or things like that. So I think both of these spells work, and I think you can come up with a way that thematically makes sense as this thing emitting from the armor, it being a gadget that your Artificer has created and built into their armor as a way to get around certain things or prevent things from getting away. And if you are enjoying the video, please give it a like. It does help so much. And we are on the path to 2,000 subscribers. And when we hit that, I will buy one of you a D&D book of your choosing. So go down and subscribe to the channel. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, and it does help out the channel a whole heck of a lot. And if you want to talk to me about this stuff in real time, I do stream on Twitch every Sunday and Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central and Saturdays at 8 a.m. Come by, hang out, we'll talk D&D, play some games. It'll be a good time. I'd love to have you. So let's talk about playing this subclass. So obviously I made some playful allusions to Tony Stark throughout the beginning parts of this video, and obviously that's a way that you can go with it. You can be this savant genius that's building this armor as a way of fighting against the evils in the world, and you can just very much base your character on Tony Stark and go from there. They have given you all the tools you could possibly need to do that from a mechanical standpoint. Additionally, creating a character that builds this armor almost out of necessity would be really interesting. Maybe you have a gnome that doesn't have an immensely high strength score or ability to fight on the front lines, but wants to be able to do that, and so builds this imposing set of armor. It's not going to change their size category, obviously, because that's not part of the class. And obviously, you're going to want to, from a flavor standpoint, say they don't have a high strength score. But if you're doing the Guardian, you're going to want to give them a high strength score. You get what I'm saying. From a flavor standpoint, you can create this character that feels like physically they can't do enough, and so they build this armor to assist them in pursuing their goals, in doing what they want to do. And that would be a really compelling story to tell. But I think the big thing with playing this subclass is you're a tinkerer. You're constantly tweaking things, tinkering with things, which is how at least I would explain the new abilities, the new spells, everything that you get as you're leveling up. Is you're tinkering with your armor, you're adding new things, and all of the artificer spells that you're using, not just the ones that are included as additionally prepared spells with this subclass, I would have coming from your armor, and I would be picking and preparing spells that it makes sense that you would incorporate into your armor. I think that would be, from a thematic standpoint, so cool to get to play and just have this mind of somebody that's constantly trying to tweak and upgrade and improve and never satisfied with what they currently have. I think is a really cool way to play this character and play the armorer in a way that's going to easily explain and excite the rest of the table with what they're doing next, what they're creating, what are they infusing now, kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's definitely how I would elect to play this subclass, definitely. And then for how to DM for the subclass, once again, this subclass, I'm going to start only doing the party section in these videos when it makes thematic sense to. There's, I mean, obviously you could build the Avengers, and this could be your Iron Man. That's definitely a way that you could build a party around this, but I'm not going to go into how to build each member of the Avengers. Maybe one day, maybe that'd be a good video, but I'm not going to do that right now. But how to DM for this? Obviously, you're going to want to give the player a lot of things to play with in terms of, like I said, tinkering and messing around with stuff and working with them. Okay, you're about to get these new spells at 5th level. How do you want to explain them? How do you want to evoke the idea that they are coming out of your armor, so that you, when you're describing actions in combat, you can be on the same page as them? I think is a really important thing. And I would go so far as to say that you should treat this subclass very much kind of like a wizard, where, you know, the wizard needs the DM to provide spells out in the world so they can build their spell book. I would say that it would be a cool thematic thing to allow them to, depending on your campaign and where the campaign is taking place, have them find ancient writings on armor modification. And maybe there's an ancient civilization that did this, and that's where they got the idea, and they're finding more and more texts and tomes on how to unlock this stuff and how to make it more powerful and stronger. And I think that would be a really cool way of having them chase the next discovery, having them chase the next infusion, that kind of thing, and allowing for those big breakthrough moments to be baked into the narrative. I think that's a lot of my DMing for these subclasses advice comes down to find interesting ways to incorporate the mechanics into the narrative. And with this subclass, it's all about the breakthroughs that they get at each level, whether it's the new spells they get or the new class features they get. Find ways when they're about to hit 5th level and they gain 2 more spells and they gain the extra attack, find a way to incorporate that into the narrative. Ideally, if you know that they're going to earn enough experience or they're going to hit the milestone to hit 5th level, tack that onto the end of the session. Have them have that breakthrough moment and be like, oh, awesome, yes. And then they can take a break until the next session and be super hyped and excited to figure out that breakthrough and get to use it on a regular basis. So yeah, that's definitely how I would do it. And I think it would be a lot of fun to do it that way. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. What do you think of the Armorer subclass? Let me know down in the comments below, and let me know what subclasses I should be taking a look at. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, it does help, and I will see you next time.